Hi everybody, welcome back to Jenkins Boat Works. I am Chuck Jenkins, and in this video we will go through how we got the fiberglass cloth on and some very good detail about how we got the epoxy on. Now we use the TotalBoat 2-to-1 high performance non-blush epoxy, and really liked how it went on. And we'll go into great detail about some of the benefits or just what kind of product it is. One of the things I learned later, this was left over out of one of the mixing cups. You can see how clear it is. So really no color to it. That was really nice. We used the slow hardener, which allowed me time to get this all on here because I was working alone. So I was doing my own mixing and applying it. So anyway, then last night, and I don't have any video actually of this in the video, but I got one of these little high density foam rollers and just a little paint pan. And we actually went back over this within 24 hours and filled the weave. This morning I'm looking at it. It's been about, 10, 11 hours, and it's pretty well set up. So anyway, I'm liking how it's turning out. So anyway, we're glad you're here. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We're gonna have way more video on this as we get this faired and smooth and varnished, and then of course we'll have to flip it over and we'll do the inside. So there's more to come on this, but anyway, welcome. We're glad you're here. Consider subscribing, and let's go ahead and jump in and see how we did with this epoxy work. Got the fiberglass cloth out. I did a final sanding with longboard sander this morning, then vacuumed the whole boat, then wiped it with a tack cloth, and we've just now rolled the fiberglass cloth out. I got 12 yards from US Composites. So we got a lot of work to do to kind of smooth it out, but anyway, it's wide enough, which is nice. Okay, so we're just got the cloth on here, we're just smoothing it out. I actually think I learned this trick from Lou. Just use a dry paintbrush. You can kind of pull a little bit with your hand, but try to get it smoothed down on the top of the canoe. Make it a lot easier when you go to put the epoxy on here for it to not have a bunch of wrinkles in it. We started from the middle, working toward the ends, and we haven't done that end up there at all, so you can kind of see here, like, we got these big wrinkles here. But if you just take that brush, just smooth it. Push the wrinkle up to a new spot. The other thing is about this is we got this on a roll, so there wasn't any creases. It wasn't folded. So that's nice. And this thing's sanded so well that we're not catching the cloth on any snags or anything like that, which is really good. And we're just going to let this cloth sit on here for several hours before we try to start putting epoxy on it. That's how you do it. We're really going to be able to see the beauty of the wood once we get some epoxy on here. When we get up to these ends, we may hold this with some clips or something when we go to put this epoxy on here, because it gets so narrow up here, it's really hard to get it to smooth, and we may actually cut a couple of slits in it. We'll just have to see how we're doing when we get there. Well, that's good for now. More in a little bit. Well, we just got the stuff in from Jamestown Distributors, TotalBoat epoxy, and I got the pumps So this should make it pretty easy to mix, you know, the ratio correctly. And there's the slow 2-to-1 hardener. And then here's the resin. We got some cups we can use. So I'm going to try to calibrate the pumps and just make sure that I'm getting the right ratio and that I can trust them. And so I've got a couple little, I just got these off like cough syrup medicine deals, but they show some milliliters on here, 10, 20, this one's got 10 and 15. So I should be able to, depending on how much it pumps out. If it pumps out more than that, and I've got these other little graduated beakers. So gonna have to kind of play with it for a minute. And once you get the pumps in there, you gotta pump them a couple, 3 times to get them primed so that you got a full amount coming out, no air bubbles or anything like that in it. So let me get that set up and then we'll take a look and see how the pumps work. Okay, so I'm trying to set up the pumps for the epoxy, and they give you an instruction sheet, which is nice. Blue goes to blue, red dot goes to red. This is the hardener, and this is the pump for the resin. Now, this is the 1 gallon size, so on that one, resin, 1 gallon, do not trim. So this should work. I'm just gonna put this in this one. On this one, as you can see, it's too long. It won't go in there. So on this one, it says the half gallon, which is what this is, it's 2-to-1, gallon, half gallon. Trim this off 2 inches. So, got my trusty T-square, 2 inches. I made a little pencil mark on here at 2 inches. I'm just gonna take the knife and cut it off. Go at 2 inches. And I want a little bit of an angle similar to the angle that it's got on it. Okay. Okay, so I got this cut off. This one I didn't have to cut, and I've got them in here, and now I'm gonna bleed them out, get all the air out. So we're gonna waste a little bit, but we gotta get the pumps cleared. Okay, see nothing? Yeah, it feels like we're getting somewhere. Wow, there was like no air in that at all. You know what? I think we're going to be able to use these, the little tiny ones, and figure out how much we've got. Okay, I got the pumps primed, so there's no more air in them. And I'm going to use these little cups to see if we're pretty much getting a 2-to-1 ratio. Now, this is minimum this one has is 10 milliliters, and in my experience so far, it looks like one pump is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6 milliliters. So we're gonna have to kind of estimate just a little bit. My other cup has more markings on it. We'll put the hardener in that one. I'm gonna do 2 pumps just so we get enough to where we can see if it looks like it's 2-to-1. Boy, I clearly must have had some air in it before, because now one pump, well, it's not quite 10. I would say that's probably 9. Okay, let's see how the hardener does. it's right about 4. I think we're pretty close. Okay, I've been mixing this for about 3 minutes now, and I'm starting off with just a little batch. I want to see what the viscosity's like and how it sets up on the cloth. And I am going to start in the middle and work my way out. So once we get going, we've got to do the whole thing. So let's see how she rolls. This is exciting. Well, it's setting down in there on that cloth pretty nice. I've got the slow hardener, and I did that on purpose because it's just me. I'm going to have to do my own mixing, and I want to make sure that I'm able to get it on here before it starts setting up. The shop right now is about 72, 74 degrees. We're through the heat of the day. I don't have the furnace running, so temperature should go down over the next several hours, which is good. You don't want the temperature to go up because it'll cause your wood to outgas and it can make bubbles or other problems. So, wow, that's nice. Look at that. See little spots there? Of course, we're going to put another coat on after this starts to set up, just so we can fill the weave. So I don't want it on here real thick, and I don't want it on here real thin. I just want enough to wet the cloth out. I don't want to starve the cloth, but I don't want it puddling up in it either. I took a tip from Lou and cut the end off this brush. And I like to use a brush because you can kind of push it into the fabric. Kind of control where you're at. When I'm up on the very top, I just poured it on there and then smooth it out. But as you come down on the sides, it's a lot easier to keep it from running all over the place if you can kind of control it with the brush. Now I need to get back over here so I can kind of move and push the cloth so it doesn't bunch up. See what I mean about pushing it in there? This canoe's got tumble home, so the edge comes in like that. I've got the floor draped. You may be able to see some of the protection there, just so we don't get epoxy all over the place. I leave the cloth overhanging too. I don't want to cut it because it'll fray. And the other part of it is you can get catch some of the drips in just this extra part. It's very easy to cut it off after you're done with getting the epoxy on here. Let it dry, and then you just take a utility knife and cut it off. It's pretty easy. We want to make sure we don't have any white spots. See here, I'm kind of poking and pushing. I can get that epoxy into that cloth. And it helps to go in different angles
just because of the way the weave of the cloth is. Do it one direction and then another, crossways against it, like that. We want to make sure this epoxy's through the cloth, wets the cloth out, and into the wood. Just like that. I got a little bubble there, but see, I'm pushing it away from where I'm at. So far, I haven't really had any issues with the cloth bubbling up. And that has to do with how we put it on here and smoothed it out and let it hang for a little while. Make sure it's pretty fair and smooth before you ever start putting epoxy on it. I like the way this epoxy is going on here too. It's not floating. So in other words, the cloth's not coming up away from the wood. It's getting all the way through. Sometimes if it floats and you put some pressure on when you're putting it on there, you can run in a problem because my brush is loaded up too much here. I'm going to try to get some of it out of there. Anyway, it can float on you, and then your cloth's moving all over the place, and it's not staying where it's supposed to on the wood. This epoxy seems to be going right through it and into the wood to where I'm not getting it. I haven't had it float on me once, so that's really nice. Oh, fly, look at that stupid thing. Ah, he's stuck. You see him up here? Oh my gosh. It's still winter. What are you doing here? Dying. We don't want to see any white, and we don't want to see any bubbling up where the epoxy's thick and shiny. I suppose it's kind of an art form. Oops, I just slopped some on the floor. Well, see, that's why I've got that drape down there. It takes it a minute for it to soak in there. You just got to be patient. Don't go piling a whole bunch more on there if you know you went over it. Let it sit for a minute and see how if it soaks in there. See, I can still see that white weave there, but you let it wait a minute. Just like that. The slow hardener's nice. It's not, it hasn't not even once tried to go off on me. And when I do come back and look and I see a little place where it looks like it ran a little bit, I can just go in there and smooth it, kind of tip it. See, there's a run right there. Smooth that out. The more you get those out of there, the less issues you got when you go to sand it. It's impossible to see them all. I'm going to have some. No matter how hard you try, you wind up with some of it just being uneven. Work from a wet edge out. All right, we got the first coat on here. TotalBoat 2-to-1 high performance. Really went on pretty good. I did almost all of it with a paintbrush. Once you get into those vertical areas, you really can't just pour it on there. We'll still have to fill the weave. Wow, it really makes the wood pop.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.